Welcome to Destination Linux, the rogue assembly of open source anti-heroes, where every line of code is a high-stakes mission, and I'm your taskmaster this week, Michael, leading this motley crew of tech renegades with my Thunderbolt squad ready to shake up the Linux underworld. Jill is our Yelena Belova, sharp-tongued, code-slinging mastermind. Her creed, if it's not open source, it's just a proprietary leash to be cut. Then we have Ryan joining us. He is our Bucky Barnes, battle-tested sysadmin, rewiring servers with his vibranium focus. This week's mission, we're infiltrating the shiny new circuits of Cosmic Alpha 7 and slipping through the web of accessibility in gaming and troubleshooting for an unhappy Linux user who's about to get a rogue level fix. So strap on your tactical gear, sync your repos, and remember, in open source, we don't follow orders. We rewrite the rules. Now let's roll out. Wait, what? Ryan, that's Transformers, not Thunderbolts.
Oh, that's not Thunderbolts? I thought Prime was like the big Thunderbolt guy in there. And
I mean, there's Thunderbolts involved if you count the Allspark, I guess.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
No. Yeah.
Bumblebee.
Sure. Close enough. This is Destination Linux.
So this week, our feedback comes from Ian, and they have this to say regarding episode 413. They're really mad at you, Michael. Ian is mad at you.
What I do?
I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
They start off with, Apple is not an open source advocate.
I don't think we ever said we were.
Of taking open source and turning it proprietary. They used to have open source developers, advocates on the payroll, but they left years ago. Apple has since transitioned all the open source projects into closed source APIs. In the words of Linus Torvalds, I can't say them, but you can imagine what they are. NVIDIA has done more to support open source than Apple ever did. Even when Apple did use open source software, they rarely actually contributed anything back upstream.
That's not true.
They also avoided GPL style licensing.
Of course.
So,
most do.
Michael, shame on you, first of all, for suggesting in episode 413 that Apple is fantastic.
That 100% did not happen.
Gil, shame on you for suggesting in episode 413 that
I'm pretty confident that Ryan said it in that episode.
There's no way I said those words. So all three of us are
said
denying
those words. Really, exactly. I think we talked about how Apple has done some open source stuff, and I'm pretty sure I gave an example. Like, I'm pretty sure we didn't even say that any really positive thing about Apple in the sense other than the hardware is good. But I think as far as open source goes, we talked about how open source Apple's an example of taking something that was open and then making a proprietary version of it. I think it's like the opposite of what this.
Maybe they weren't even directing this. Maybe they were just making a statement of, "Hey, Apple doesn't do good for open source." In which case, if it wasn't like a counter argument, it was just like a statement. Then I agree, Ian, because I don't think we've ever declared Apple as an open source advocate. With that said, I think it's important to note that Apple has open source, but really only do it to their own benefit and never really for the broader community. So I think it's a fair statement. But
they do certain things that are for the broader community, but only because they kind of have to.
It always has to benefit Apple at the end of the day. Like Swift, which is Apache 2.0 license, WebKit for Safari is LGPL and BSD license.
Because
Darwin, which is
already... But Safari was based on WebKit was based on another thing from like KHTML that was already licensed in a way they had to do that. So basically they're doing it because they have to. But then that's the same thing with Cups, like the printer system.
Yeah,
Cups was started before Apple took over, but once Apple took over, it was still like they still had to keep it open source because that's how it was. So technically, Apple is not an advocate for open source, but they have done a lot of open source stuff that benefits them, and then indirectly benefits everybody else.
I think the only thing I would say benefits everyone, and there's probably arguments to be made that it helps them mostly, but ResearchKit and CareKit, which is part of their medical research health apps, they open source for clinical studies and patient care. Now, obviously, this benefits them from being able to put this in their watches and stuff, but they could have kept that research. They have enough money to keep all that stuff closed and do their own research and not open it up.
That's
so
true.
I would say
and
there's
also,
some
like medical
value
research,
there.
there's a lot of stuff that should not be behind closed doors that is. And so that's good that this is, good Apple. Good job.
I heard a company recently make a statement in one of their kind of town hall things where they said they were working on accessibility, and they said, and of course, we're going to keep all this open because this is not an area to compete in. And I thought that was a really interesting statement, right? And I feel the same way for healthcare. Like, you don't want to, this is not a business to compete in. This is something you want to fix for the broader world. And so I would say there's some good in that, because Apple's watches, their health tracking, their EKG, their heart monitoring, their heart attack, those things have saved lives.
Yeah.
So
they're not perfect, but they are very good.
They've saved lives. People have realized they're having heart attacks and been able to get to the hospital in time and things with this. 911 services have automatically been contacted in certain cases because they have settings for that. And I know with my own parents, that was something, I didn't go Apple, I got them Garmin, but it was something really important for me as they got older to have that, because, heart attacks run in my family and things like that. So really wanted my dad to have a watch that could monitor that type of stuff. So I'm really happy, because Apple was really one of the pioneers in this front when it came to really building this technology into wearables. I said one of the pioneers, not the pioneer. And they got really advanced with the heart monitoring and things that they were able to do with their stuff. So I'm glad this is open. So, you got to take the good with the bad. Apple's got a lot of things they don't do for open source, and most of the stuff they do is for their own benefit. And they did some good, at least with this, medical research, I think is one of the top things that they did that, yes, it benefits them too, but also the broader community. Anybody can use that research, and that's helpful. So there you go.
They are good with open source in their own walled garden, but they have contributed back. They have. So
a little bit.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
There.
Not enough for me to own an iPhone like you guys do, but
whoa!
First of all, wow!
I have
shots
an Android right here. Hello. So I don't want to hear it.
And Jill, it's an iPhone.
I'm just having fun with you.
I mean, it is an iPhone. I do have an iPhone, but that's that's a whole different thing, because to say that this is any less like open than Android is kind of ridiculous at this point, because Android is so locked down and also a privacy nightmare.
But
so
I could put my own OS on this, Michael.
Did you?
Yeah, and that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Did you?
This is I forget what this is, but it's that thing.
Oh, it's EOS.
EOS, yeah.
That's totally fine. Like if you're going to go through that process, sure. I'm lazy. It's very different. So.
Well, I think that appreciate your comment, Ian. Maybe let us know, like, if we said something that you think alluded that to the fact that we thought Apple was super great open source community member. But to clarify, I don't think any of us believe that. If you want to send in your comments, maybe you disagree with the fact that Michael is a huge Apple fanboy, go to destinationlinux.net/comments and send in your comment.
I'm not an Apple fanboy. I'm not going to let you finish this segment off and say that. I am definitely not an Apple fanboy. I can appreciate some of the stuff they do because they have contributed open source and they did it in a big way. But yes, it's because they benefit themselves and it just happened to benefit open source. Like, that's how they work. But to say that they haven't done anything that's positive, that's a bit of a stretch. Microsoft, I can't think of a thing, but Apple, at least I can think of two things.
Let me rephrase.
All right.
If you disagree with the fact that Michael says macOS is better than Linux, send us a message at destinationlinux.net.
No.
/forums.
Refuse.
And let us know your thoughts on why Michael thinks macOS is superior to Linux.
Lies.
So there you go.
As a host of a Linux show, I refuse to let you get away with that.
So my phone is rocking EOS, Open WebOS, and Ubuntu Touch at the moment.
You have 3 OSs on one phone?
Yeah.
Wow. You actually have multi-boot on your phone. That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. You know what else is cool, Michael? As Linux users, we know what's up. Security is non-negotiable. But with threats getting smarter, your security tools need to keep up without dragging your system down. Traditional agents, they slow you down and leave blind spots, and it's time for a smarter approach. That's why Destination Linux is proud to be sponsored by Sandfly Security, revolutionary agentless platform designed for Linux. Go to destinationlinux.net/Sandfly and see how Sandfly can transform your security strategy. We had Sandfly CEO on this show. Incredible story, incredible journey. Really recommend you check it out. You can see the passion and love for Linux and why this is such an important project. Sandfly doesn't just detect and respond, but it revolutionizes security with SSH key tracking, password auditing, drift detection, covering threats from every angle. Whether your systems are in the cloud, on-premise, or in embedded devices, Sandfly covers you all of them and keeps them all secure without the headaches of an agent-based solution. Listen to Ken Kleiner, senior security engineer at the University of Massachusetts. They have this to say: Sandfly is the first product I've seen that can accurately and quickly detect thousands of signs of compromise on the Linux platform. Its unique method automates tasks which would be manually impossible. Automation is key with detection, and Sandfly completely fits this and other requirements. If your organization is using Linux, this needs to be a part of your cybersecurity toolset. Experience security that's not just effective, but gives you peace of mind. No agents, no downtime, just cutting edge protection. What else could you want? Go to destinationlinux.net/Sandfly.
I know what you could want, and that
What?
is a discount. You get
Ooh, I like
50% off with the home edition when using Destination 50. That's awesome, right? So you get, not only do you get a fantastic service, but you also get a huge discount by being a community member of the Destination Linux podcast and being part of the Tux Digital community. And all you got to do is type in Destination 50 in the coupon when you check out destinationlinux.net/Sandfly and see how Sandfly can transform your security strategy.
On this show, we talk about accessibility a lot. What's happening in the
Yeah.
accessibility world?
Okay, so this is something really exciting. So for those of us who love to game on Steam, but have a physical challenge to deal with, Valve is making it easier for us, your friends, and your family to find games with accessibility features. Woohoo! This is kind of something I've been wanting Valve to do for years. So developers can now enter accessibility information for their games in the Steamworks Edit Stores section, and there is a new accessibility support questionnaire for them to describe their game's accessibility features. These accessibility features include gameplay options, audio accessibility, visual accessibility, and input options. So some of the this is just amazing. So some of the gameplay options, like adjustable difficulty settings for making the game easier to play or harder to play. Some games do offer that, and it's really nice when they do. They have an easy, a hard mode, and a normal mode.
I always go easy mode. I'm not going to lie, because I don't have time to play games anymore. So, like,
Yeah.
if I'm playing, I'm clicking easy mode so that I can get the story and be like, oh, yeah, I played it. And, because
No, I completely
actually
hear
try
you
to-
there.
I don't want to do the easy mode because I just can't bring myself to do it, but I never go more than like the regular basic mode. Like, that's good.
this is how they designed it to be played in normal mode. So that's the mode I'm doing. But the crazy
Yeah.
people out there who do everything in expert, I admire them. It's amazing, but I will never be you.
Yeah.
There was a game called The Witcher, like The Witcher 3,
Oh, yeah.
I think was
Oh, yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
There's like this
I like how you mentioned it,
hardcore.
like, there's this game you may not have heard of called The Witcher, only one of the most popular AAA games ever made. I mean, come on.
I was not saying that. I'm saying that they have a hardcore mode that I don't know what it's actually called, but it's like, I don't know, some kind of like berserker mode or something like that. And it is like the hardest I've ever seen that I couldn't imagine doing this. It is a type of mode that is, if you die, the game is over. Like, period. One death, that's it. So the entire game, you have to be like super careful, and you have to like make sure every single thing you do is strategically placed, and like it's.
What about the people who do that with Diablo? They go into this nightmare mode or whatever it's called, and like you basically level up this character, spend all this time getting loot, and then if you die once, you lose everything. What is the joy in this?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Oh my gosh,
it's like
too much like real life. It's too close to real life, you know.
Yeah. What's the name of that game? Is it Dark Souls? It's like people who enjoy Dark Souls, you know.
Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Man, I tried playing that game because everyone talked about it so much, so I gave it a good go.
Yeah.
I got pretty far, probably maybe midway through the first game or whatever, and I was just like, I just can't anymore. Like it was fun. I got the idea.
It is
all
fun.
you were doing is memorizing the boss's moves.
Yes.
Ad nauseum to the point where it's like 55 deaths. And then finally you're like, okay, they're going to swing the sword left now. Now I'm going to need to jump. And then I block here. And I'm like, I don't know. It's really, it's just not.
all you're doing is memorizing and reacting. So it's not like you're, it's kind of,
I don't want to say all you're doing because it's a lot. These people are very skilled who play this. But to me, I didn't see the joy in it.
I mean, that's the concept of the game, but it still requires you a lot of effort to figure out how to do it. And like, to be fair, a lot of games are just figuring out how it works and repeating the process over and over.
Yeah.
So, Jill, is this like where you're saying Steam has a setting where you can make it easier without the game actually having that feature?
It didn't specify that. I think this is for game developers to include this.
You mentioned
in their
they
game.
have easy mode.
Easy.
Because otherwise you wouldn't even know that it's an option. Yeah.
Exactly. I normally play in normal mode, actually, and then I will go to easy or hard, depending on the game, as I kind of start playing it to see what I want to do. But I try to start with normal mode.
No, my wife can play Guitar Hero on expert mode, so I think that's impressive.
That's amazing.
I can do that too. I can do that. So I can only do. You know what's the best part is like if you play Guitar Hero, the best thing to do is to get one of those Wi-Fi ones, that Wi-Fi key guitars that have headphone jacks. And then just plug it in and then listen to yourself as you're doing it when there's no music going on. It is hilarious, but. It's like, but it's actually pretty fun. I can do expert on guitar and on bass. I feel very, very powerful about that, but very rock bandy.
You're very talented.
I'm
There's
a Guitar Hero
episode on that.
Yeah, exactly. But the drums, I feel so uncoordinated. It's like even the basics of drums. It makes me feel like I can't even move my feet anymore.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, another accessibility gameplay option is the being able to save gameplay using both automatic and manual saves and allowing saving at any point in the game. Please, please, developers, do this for every game. I have played so many games that don't let you save until you make it through a map or level. And it can be frustrating if you die or don't complete the task in time and have to start over and do it all over again.
Well, you know, there's one game I saw game played. I want to say it was Assassin's Creed or something, but it was really funny because when you save, you could save at any point, but it says, really? Again? Really? You're going to save again? Like it starts taunting you. And I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Makes sense. Yeah, and some of the audio accessibility features are including a custom volume controls where you can adjust the volume of the audio. Different types of audio can be muted independently from each other. I think this is like, like in Genshin Impact, I can, adjust the audio for the voices or for the environmental sounds or for the music, which is really nice. Yeah. It's one of the few games I've encountered.
Wish Hollywood would allow us to do that with movies because they always record the voices on the lowest level humanly possible in every movie now to the point where you cannot hear the dialogue of what anybody's saying. Either that or I'm old. I don't know.
It's okay. So it actually is, they are doing it on purpose. I saw some video where they're explaining the technological reasons why they're doing it. And it's so fascinating because because of the technology of the microphones and how good they are now, they can do lower volume recordings, and then sometimes I just forget to boost the volume. And then there's whereas if you go back in like the 80s, they're all basically yelling,
which is good. I miss the yelling because now most movies, I have to have closed captions on because I'm like, I don't know,
Same
especially
here.
when they're whispering. If they're in a scene where they're just having like detailed talks about their plan to take over the world or whatever, I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. I heard Bob and soup and tomato, and that's about it. And yeah.
So how would Bob, soup, and tomato take over the world? Is the
Great question. I have to turn on the closed captions to find out, because I can't understand what the heck
Aw.
they're talking about.
And
Maybe it's
another-
Bob's tomato soup.
Oh,
that's-
tomato soup. Okay.
Yeah.
And another audio accessibility feature is narrated game menus. So you can listen to game menus with narrated audio. That is really,
Nice.
really cool. I had never thought of that, and that would be awesome. And if you're using stereo sound, you can identify how far to the left or right sounds are coming from. And the same with if you're using surround sound, which is really cool. And one of my other favorite accessibility features are the visual ones, like adjusting text size. So you can adjust text size in game text, menu text, character dialogue text, and subtitle text. Sometimes for me, the menu fonts are way too tiny and I can't even read them. So I have to use, control middle mouse button to zoom in and use the magnifier to see them. So that's another awesome thing that could make your game, stand out, is if you have adjustable font sizes. And also subtitle options, so you can have options to customize the display of subtitles for all the spoken content and audio information.
That's very cool.
Very awesome. And color alternatives. So gameplay doesn't rely on colors to communicate important information, or lets you have an option to adjust colors used for distinguishing information.
Very important for me to always in a game have a line that tells me exactly where to go, or else I'll get lost in the game. So I could understand
if people, if it's about a navigation thing in a game. Imagine I actually can't wait, because the next time we are in the same place, I'm going to have like a Steam Deck or something, or to have like a, not even a racing game, but like something like Grand Theft Auto, because technically that still works offline. And just see if he can navigate to a particular section of the game.
Never happen. It will never happen. I might stumble upon it on accident. But
we'll turn off the GPS just to make sure he can't.
I don't know that I ever played the main story in GTA because the map was so big and I was always lost. But I always found the side quest somewhere. Like I don't know where we're going. But then they added in the ability to put the lines to your mission, and I was set. I was like, all right, I could follow a line. I'm good at that.
I can follow a line.
Yeah.
Actually, Ryan, that is great, because it helps for you who is navigationally challenged.
Wow, Bill.
But in a good way.
I thought it was a strength of mine, honestly. So fine.
I'm just teasing you.
Why would that be a strength
challenged
of not being able to know where you're going?
Because I live life so carefree, Michael, that it doesn't matter where I go. Wherever I go, that's where the party is,
Yeah,
wherever I end
you're the
up.
party animal.
That's it. That's what I'm known for. By no one.
And another visual accessibility feature is camera comfort. And this is one that a lot of people don't think about, but really affects me tremendously. So you have an option to adjust or disable uncomfortable camera movement, such as screen shaking, camera bobbing, or motion blur, or the game doesn't feature these effects at all. And honestly, I always turn motion blur off. It just visually drives my eyes nuts. Or I should say my one eye nuts, that I'm really trying to focus on something, and then it just has too much blurring.
Yeah, and also it's like it depends on the level of motion blur, because like sometimes you can do like
if
they can give you a control, if you can like lower it, and if the games do this, I think that all games should do these kinds of things. I think that would be fantastic, and also like maybe some colorblind stuff too, so you can like identify different things in menus and all sorts of stuff. I think this would be fantastic, but I just want to go back a little bit, because I was laughing uncontrollably and I couldn't say anything because I just Ryan was saying that the whole reason he's not good at navigation is so he can get to parties.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I'm a big partier, Michael. That's what I'm known for.
Because his whole purpose is like, I'm only going to stop when I get to a party.
When I'm in a car, I'm headed to a party. If you see me on the road, that
It's
man's
party
headed to a
time.
party. It's party time.
Oh, the other thing that bothers me in games is film grain, because sometimes it's too strong. But if they have an adjustment to bring it down, I do, because I do like a little bit to have the neat look, but sometimes it's just too hard for me to see.
Yeah. Film grain is like a texture that it can be cool if it's done right. Like, for example, if it's like in a flashback scene, or if it's done inside if you're doing a game like Splinter Cell, where they give you the ability to look at like closed circuit TV stuff like that. That's cool. A film grain works and makes sense in that situation. But to have it like in there all the time is just annoying. It should be like a part of the story, not like constantly on it. I mean, we're not watching movies from the 70s or anything, so don't overdo it.
For yourself.
I mean, in the game, you're not.
And there's other accessibility options for input options, like a keyboard-only option, a mouse-only option, a touch surface-only option. Also, the game is playable without timed input, where you have an option to adjust gameplay to not require precisely timed button presses, or gameplay does not require such button presses. And this is good for people who have issues using their hands or fingers.
Mobility, yeah.
And mobility issues, yeah.
You can then search for all of these features in Steam now, which is huge. So depending if you have, certain needs for whatever reason it may be, then you can search for these. And now developers honestly now have more incentive to actually put this into games, because they have to fill out that section now. So, if you're filling out the form and you're like, none, you haven't even thought about it, it might give you pause to kind of look at it a little deeper.
And also really it's great because it's a motivator as well, because you're saying like, as you're talking about, they see the form and doing it, but also it's just like something that a lot of people don't even think about. Like when they're making their game, they're just not even thinking about it, or like making a website, you're just not thinking about that as a thing to consider. So I think it's great that it's, notifying them. And it's also something that they're promoting in like an announcement to be like, here, we're adding this feature so developers can use it. And the complexity of how much they're offering to be able to look through is just great for the gamers.
Yeah. And it's also, what's cool is it's integrated into Valve's, their wonderful tag system on Steam, which is how I search and find for games and the genres I like and the style of games I like, first person or third person. And so it's really wonderful to have this now accessibility integrated into search. And this update will actually be rolled out later in the year, giving developers time to provide the necessary information and encourage developers to include these options so many more players can play their games. And in turn, they'll make more money, and it's good for the community.
You had me at more money, Jill.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about this, we're going to talk about this later, is I know not everybody's interested in gaming, but and you'll see later why gaming is such a big deal to really getting people to adopt the Linux desktop. And so, this really takes
very important.
And Steam is really the bedrock of gaming on Linux. So having the stuff built in is super important. And, Proton 10.0 has been released, the 10.0-1 beta. And now this makes a lot of the games that were only Proton experimental, which not everybody kind of understands that there are different options you can choose and stuff.
Yeah, different versions. Yeah.
Yeah, having it built into the core version. So the games that you could play on experimental, now you can play on the standard Proton 10.0 is really a big deal, I think, for those who don't get into the technical side of things. So, games like Arkham Asylum, which is fantastic Batman game in there that I play on easy mode. Final Fantasy, which is a fantastic game I play on easy mode. Dirt Rally, which is a fantastic game I play on easy mode. And any other of these games here that I also play on easy mode are fantastic to check out. So there you
I
go.
play No Man's Sky in normal mode.
Okay, show off. Last week it was your monitors. This week it's your advanced gameplay. What's next week going to be, Michael? Better car than Ryan? Is that what it will be?
Oh, well, I could buy a car, but I can't drive it, so.
There you go.
I'd have to give it to you so you could drive me around.
And then I'd be lost, so it wouldn't help anything anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the party.
So you have to keep in mind that Jill is half blind, Ryan, and probably has better navigational skills.
Guaranteed. 100%.
I am very, very,
100%.
very good with directions. I never get lost. And part of that is I have to work a little harder. So I have to pay attention to my landmarks, to the street signs when I can read them. But I pay attention to landmarks. And
I have a really weird, unexplainable gift of navigation. I don't know.
You're part cat. You can always get back home.
Is that a thing for cats?
Yeah, cats always like if you move a house even like miles away, like
they can
very far away. There's been cases where cats will go back to the original home and travel like long expressways and everything to get back to the original house. When you try to bring them to a new house, like they have incredible navigation. That explains your whiskers.
Yeah.
So we've kind of figured it out.
My beard is my whiskers.
Yeah, your whiskers. That's why you're part cat.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. But it does make sense because I do have that level. I do have cat level skills of navigation.
Yeah, let's test it out. Give me your best meow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really scarily good. That is.
Thank you.
Wow. All right, Jill, that's terrible. All right, what's next, Michael?
Meow.
It's just not a talent of yours, Jill. Not everybody can be talented at everything. Okay, a meow is not yours thing. So
so moving on, let's talk about let's talk about the next topic, which is Cosmic Alpha 7.
Woo-hoo.
So this just landed. We released an episode of it with an interview of the CEO and founder of System 76, Carl Ritchell. And the same week that we released the episode, there was a new release of Cosmic Alpha 7. And
because we inspired them to release
it was 100% because of our interview that they were they decided to release it that week. It wasn't that it also happened to just work out that way. That is what we're sticking
I like how
to.
We're
that
like
story.
Politicians now. We just no matter what good is happening,
we take credit for it no matter what.
But if it's bad, we're like, no, we had nothing to do with that. That's not us. That was the other person.
Exactly. So. Yeah. But just real quick, before we dive into this, if you want to check it out, alphas are not necessarily meant to be used by everyone. There is some testing. There will be some bugs and all that sort of stuff. So keep that in mind if you do try it out. But it's very cool. And if you haven't checked out the interview with Carl Ritchell, go do that. That was episode 416. We'll have all this linked in the show notes.
You know how many Starship Troopers just got excited about that sentence? That there will be bugs?
Oh, wow. Wow. That was a deep cut right there. That was good. That was good. For a second, I was like, I know the movie. What are you talking about? Oh, well, okay. Yep. Got it. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this new release of Cosmic is what Carl mentioned that was coming in the release, and that is something that I am so excited for, is all the changes for the workspaces. For those who don't know, workspaces are also known as virtual desktops, and they're very cool. They're very useful, and you can have like your own setup of various different tasks that are on a specific workspace and switch back between different workspaces. It's very useful, but they're adding something that's even cooler because Cosmic has dynamic displays or dynamic workspaces, really. And this is something that you have also in GNOME. So when you move a window to a new workspace, it will create another one, kind of like waiting for your interaction, wherein that happens in Cosmic as well. But one thing about GNOME is that you don't really have the ability to make a minimum amount of workspaces that you always have. It's just the dynamic and that's it. And you can install an extension to give you that functionality, but that's a whole other bag of worms. The feature in Cosmic Alpha 7 is that they have added a system called pinning, where you can pin workspaces and have a minimum amount while also having the dynamic continue to go, which is just really cool. But another thing that I love about it is the independent monitor for your workspaces. So what that means is that with other desktops, if you have multiple monitors, you have all of them moving at once. So let's say you have 3 workspaces. Well, each monitor has 3 workspaces. But in Cosmic, you can have as many as you want or as few as you want, depending on the monitor. So if you want to have one monitor, let's say you have 3 monitors and one of them has 2 workspaces, the other one can have 3, and the other can have 12. Why? It's just an example. So you could do this. But let's say on the 12 monitor, you wanted to move one of them to the other monitor. Well, that wasn't possible, but it is now in Alpha 7 because you can just drag and drop them to the other monitor. And that is so cool because there are a few. I don't know if any of them have the functionality of drag and dropping because I've never seen it before. But there are a few that have the ability to do independent monitor workspaces. But for all I know, I've only seen it on tiling window managers, and also Enlightenment. I don't know of any other DE like Cosmic that has this independent workspace per monitor thing. It's just really cool.
Killer. It is so, the ability to tile, number one, is so advantageous, especially when you're working with multiple machines or a multiple project. Having multiple workspaces is just as critical, I think, especially when you're doing videos, Michael, just that is an example that we use constantly, like being able to record a video and have that in its own workspace. And then the stuff you're actually recording on a different workspace is super important.
We're doing a podcast because right now we're doing a podcast. We're also live streaming it for those who don't know. We're live streaming an audio version of it to YouTube and Twitch and that sort of stuff. And we have a lot of people in the chat that have some really good contents. And I wanted to point out one thing, but before we get to it, I have 4 different monitors running right now to do this setup and to make sure the streams worked and all that sort of stuff, to be able to watch the chats and to be able to interact and be on the show at the same time. So having multiple monitors is definitely important in this kind of workflow. And having multiple workspaces is just critical because I can have everything let's say I want to have all the chats listed up. Like you have multiple chats, you can have them all on one monitor, but also that takes up a lot of space. So you kind of can't do that really easily. You just put them all on one workspace and then boom, switch back and forth. Super fast, super easy. It's just a wonderful way of doing a workflow. But there is one message that's in the chat that I wanted to bring attention for Ryan because Chris says Ryan is the best. And wow. I responded with Ryan is okay, I guess.
Wait a minute. You went off script to read a compliment, but then give your little silly little comment back at me right then,
That was the sole purpose.
That was the whole purpose. In the middle of this amazing...
That's what you get for making up stuff about me and the Apple stuff. That's what you get.
By the way, people, if you want to make a comment about Michael saying that macOS is better than Linux, go to comments, destinationlinux.net/comments, and send in your thoughts on why Michael is wrong.
And if you want to go to destinationlinux.net/comments and tell Ryan that he's okay, I guess, you can do that as well.
He's okay, I guess. We're going to get a bunch of emails now that say Ryan's okay, I guess. Great. Thanks. I have to read through those to actually get to the comments we can use in the show,
I mean, it is.
Or we can have an episode where it's 6 people saying Ryan's okay, I guess, and we'll just read that. Ian says Ryan's okay, I guess. Bob says Ryan's okay, I guess.
That actually might be a fantastic community feedback section, so we'll see.
I like it. And then each one you guys have separate comments on, like it's real in depth.
Yeah, well, anyway, super in depth on the reactions. Yeah.
Speaking of accessibility, they built a lot of accessibility, and we talked about this with Carl on the show, which I think is awesome. The high contrast mode, the color filters, the color inversions, the mono sound, people with hearing impairment, those type of things. Amazing. The zoom tools that they have in there. Of course, even shortcut keys are definitely accessibility options as well. But they're also extremely useful for anybody who's just wanting to be more productive. Being able to cycle workspaces, tiling, really important to have a good set of shortcuts and an editable set of shortcuts, because just because you think it's a good shortcut combination doesn't mean anybody else is. Speaking of which, the Vim comment we got on our last YouTube video legit made me laugh out loud. Like, that was so good. They deserve a call out. Their comment was, I was making a joke about Vim users not being able to reply fast enough because they couldn't exit. And they were like, yes, we can write text perfectly fine. And then after that, it was all these like colon WQ exclamation point WQ, them trying to exit out of Vim. It was genius.
I want to see if I can find the actual,
absolutely genius,
the actual comment while we're going on to the next thing. So we'll come back to that in a sec.
Shortcuts really, really important. And then, they have X11 app scaling, obviously in there as well. So 2 fractional scaling modes for X-Wayland apps, which I think is really important. A lot of work in files, a lot of work with tooltips, audio, having a left and right balance slider in there in the sound settings. So they're getting to the point now where they're working on features that I think when you're expecting a brand new desktop, you may not expect to have in the first version. These are more detailed, in-depth features of an advanced, well put together desktop environment that they are already working on making sure there's there, which tells me they're not just kind of trying to rush a desktop out and say, look, we got a desktop, use it. They're really trying to make this thing beginning to end, have that full, complete desktop experience.
I mean, they're trying to do something that's more crazy than that. Like they're trying to make the very first version that's like the full production version to have not only stuff that you would expect from a desktop, but also a bunch of extra stuff that you wouldn't even expected them to do. And then also make it where that everything is modular and everything is customizable. So you could go and change whatever, because you talked about being able to change your shortcuts. I mean, they basically are making it possible to change everything. Like that's the goal. And that is a fantastic.
Because they're making that modular system where you could take things in, take them out, put them back in. I think this is the most exciting thing going on for Linux desktop right now. Like there's really nothing else that I'm that hyped about on the desktop. There's good things that little desktops, look at me insulting them.
Look at these little
desktops out there that currently exist, little KDE, little GNOME. But this is the most exciting thing, I think, happening to the Linux desktop. And it's really needed. I think the Linux desktop has kind of hit this point of all of them are pretty good, but now all of them are also kind of stagnant. And we really need someone to kind of bring some new ideas and innovations into the desktop, because we've got a whole new generation of people coming into Linux. And I think it's really exciting what they're doing over there. Very excited about it.
Well, I wanted to touch upon some of the accessibility features, particularly the magnification features. So, and we didn't get to talk about this with our interview with Carl Ritchell, but we will at another date. We're going to interview him and talk with him, hopefully, about accessibility. We're going to do a show with him on that. But when I met Carl Ritchell, again, the CEO and creator of System 76 at the Southern California Linux Expo, Scale 22X this past March, I had a great time helping him test user experience design for accessibility on the upcoming Rust-based Cosmic, which we are talking about right now, including improvements to the magnifier for screen zooming. The on-screen overlay can now be disabled when you activate the magnifier. This is actually one of the features that I told Carl would be a nice option, because I found that the overlay was in the way of me seeing what I was zooming in on. They do have, you can adjust the percentage of the overlay, but sometimes you just don't want it there and it's in the way. So I told him it would be nice if we had a feature to turn that off. And they did in this release. And
Very
the
cool.
ability, so I made a difference. That was nice.
Yeah.
And the ability also to disable Super Plus Scroll on the mouse. I actually use Super Plus Scroll myself constantly for gaming and being productive. And it literally has been a game changer for me. But being able to turn this feature off, as well as the overlay, and assign other shortcut keys to the modifier is beneficial for people who actually have worse vision than I do, or who have other accessibility needs where there's conflicting key commands, or who can't use the mouse because they have like carpal tunnel syndrome, or they have issues using their hands and fingers. So this is great because you can customize everything. So you can change those tools to be whatever shortcuts or device you want to use. And that's just amazing.
It reminds me of when I was helping Neil deGrasse Tyson with his astrophysics work and helping him calculate, the new formations of dwarf galaxies and stuff. Like that reminds me of when I was doing that.
If you'd like to learn more about Ryan's work with Neil deGrasse Tyson, you can check out Star Talk, episode never.
Didn't happen. Neil deGrasse Tyson should have us on Star Talk. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yes, we would love to talk about astrophysics, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Feel free to get in touch with us by going to destinationalytics.net/comments. And you can find out why Ryan is okay, I guess.
You can weigh in on the conversation of why Michael likes Apple more than Linux. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson would have a fantastic take on this. It also reminds me of the time where I saved 100 puppies and 100 babies all at once.
At the same time, in the same session from a burning building. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it was really just a moment I don't like to talk about a lot, but, it happened.
I mean, it is the first time he ever brought it up, so...
Yeah. See?
Yeah. He's very humble. He's so humble.
But anyways, Jill, your work with Carl is cool too.
Aw. Thank you.
So this week, there was this article that caught my attention. It was titled, "I regret switching to Linux even though I wanted to love it." And so when I saw this article, naturally I had to clickbait because it's clickbait.
Of course.
So I had to click it because I thought...
Where was this article posted?
Well, it was XDA Developers, so developers.com, XDAdevelopers.com.
That seems like an odd place for them to not be able to use Linux.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see.
Very odd. So this is probably really bad timed article for the author as well, given the same week we have PewDiepie's amazing Linux video that just came out. So their level of timing seems to be our level of timing when we release stuff, terrible timing. Like you got this guy that, no offense, but most people probably don't know Patrick Hearn very well unless you're regular part of the XDA developers stuff. But then you've got PewDiepie, the most popular YouTuber in the world, saying, "I love it." And then you got this guy who's supposed to be super technical in an XDA forum going, "I can't figure it out." And so,
and also PewDiepie is in the beginning of his video is like, "I'm not technical at all," and then goes hardcore into like massively customizing arts and stuff.
Yeah.
This is such bad timing, Patrick. And but I don't mind that people voice their thoughts and opinions on this type of stuff. The article starts off with Patrick stating they're above average computer user, okay, and that they've dabbled with Linux in the past, so they have some experience with it. They start off, of course, discussing gaming, and so this kind of leads perfectly into, we get not everybody's a gamer, but keep in mind, gaming is bigger than movies and music combined. It's
financially, revenue versions. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you think about impacts, gaming is one of the biggest impacting things when it comes to people.
In addition to that, you're completely right, but it's more so than that. For people who don't care about gaming, we understand. You don't have to care about gaming, but you should want as much gaming on the platform as possible, because with gaming support comes better hardware support, because who uses the most latest and greatest hardware typically for the desktop? Gamers. And that's if you want all that sort of stuff, you should be promoting it. Even if you don't care, just still promote that it should be, and it also is anyway. So good job, Valve, again.
No, they're saying this is a major hurdle, and frankly, this is a major hurdle for a lot of people back in the day. I remember even when I first got into Linux, it was a hard argument to be like, "Oh yeah, gaming on Linux." It wasn't very good. This is pre-Proton coming out and those type of things. But what's interesting to me is Apple never seems to get the same level of scrutiny that Linux does, when Apple is 100 years behind Linux when it comes to gaming. You can barely run anything on Apple, yet I don't see these articles of like, "I tried to use Mac OS, but it sucks because you can't game on it." It's like, you never see it. And so, again, I'm not mad that they created an article and that Linux wasn't for them. Linux is not for everybody. Even PewDiepie's video, he ends with, "Hey, this is not for everybody." At least try to be fair, since you are more technical than the average user and you are on XDA developers, to be like a little bit more or a little bit less biased when it comes to those type of things. Either way, Patrick mentions that while gaming has improved, some of the games, it looks like that they specifically wanted to play, because they mentioned anti-cheat systems were difficult to work around. and this is not directly a Linux issue, but it's still fair to say, like, if you have a specific game that you want to play, and that specific game uses a rootkit, we don't allow those on Linux, thank goodness. And because we don't allow your system to be rootkitted so that they can watch everything going on in your system at kernel level, then we don't allow those anti-cheats on Linux, and they don't work on Linux, and you can't play that game. That's a very small, shrinking group of games, by the way. Even probably the most popular game, arguably out right now, Marvel Rivals, you can play perfectly on Linux. So there are a lot of great games you can play.
And they specifically made sure that Linux support was there. And in there, if there was ever any issues, which there have been issues, they have quickly fixed them for Linux users, which is awesome. Good job, Marvel Rivals.
So in this case, again, you have picked a platform, you drew a line in the sand and said, but it has to be able to run this specific thing, and then proclaimed after that, well, gaming's better, but it's not where it should be because I couldn't play this one game. So not my favorite comment, but I also do understand that gaming is something that it's not on par with Windows.
Is 100%
yet.
Yeah, you're right. And anti-cheat is an issue. It's going to be a problem to deal with some games, but that's because you're right. Like Linux does, technically speaking, you could install a rootkit if you wanted to. It's like, because that's what an anti-cheat thing is. If it's a kernel level anti-cheat, it is a rootkit. But you could technically install that into a Linux system, but you can also immediately bypass it in every way. So it's a worthless thing to install.
I know there's somebody writing right now going, it's not really a rootkit. Delete your email. I don't care. We're not going to read it. You're wrong. Okay.
I mean, it is legit a rootkit because it has root access to your system.
It 100% is. I don't want to hear the argument that it's not. I see people arguing that it's not. Yeah, I mean, you're writing on this technicality thing. It's what you could do with that rootkit. No. You're essentially creating a backdoor into your entire system. It is so dangerous, even though its purpose supposedly is just to stop cheating. It also opens your system up for everybody else to also do a bunch of stuff to it. So
yeah, but okay. So if you saw someone, I just want to clarify the technicality aspect of it. If you saw someone say that that this is not a rootkit or whatever, it is 100% a rootkit. The whole concept of a rootkit is that it has kernel level access. And if it has kernel level access, which they all do, not all anti-cheats are those kinds of things, but all these kinds of ones that
somebody's still going to argue.
You could say that they're necessary, quote unquote, or whatever, but they're not. They're still rootkits.
There's somebody writing the email, and they're like, the Siberian word for root is dapaluka, and dapaluka means higher than the kernel level. And there's somebody who's going to argue. That's my point, Michael. Somebody's going to argue it, even though you're 100% right. Then they mention a huge learning curve. They specifically call it NVIDIA for being the culprit. Looks like they had to recompile some NVIDIA drivers to unlock the full potential of their GPU. I don't know what was all involved in that. But again, this is a fair critique that NVIDIA's lack of native kernel support is to blame. And they did properly, I feel like, put that blame on NVIDIA. But, it has improved a lot. And again, I think they were trying to play a specific game and maybe had some issues because really NVIDIA has been pretty stable on most distros.
Solid,
so,
anyway, you're right. But also apparently, out of curiosity, I was wondering what Dapaluka would mean in the random language. So I went to Google Translate. Turns out it means nightfall. In
I'm good.
Yeah, it's not exactly what to have made. You came up. It's I think. Let's see what I think it's Polish. I think that's what it was. No, it's Czech. Right. So you found a made up word that became a word.
A professional arguer. What do they call those? Oh yeah, lawyers. So. It
or a debater.
Like they also had some issues with accessories working that were Windows-only accessories. And again, I get the frustration, but imagine going to an Apple store, complaining your Windows accessories aren't working the same on your Mac as they did on Windows. So you had a set of accessories. You had a specific computer that was built for Windows. You have accessories that were built for Windows. You decide you want to use Linux. You give Linux no break by going, hey, I'm going to go make sure I go buy a mouse that's made for Linux and a keyboard because there's millions of them out there. And then you get upset that your stuff doesn't work out of the box. And you wouldn't do the same thing for Apple. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my point here is that I understand everything you're saying, but what I think you're missing entirely is the fact that you are switching ecosystems without giving any thought or any grace towards the fact that you're switching ecosystems. And if you were doing it to Apple, you would not have written the same article because you would have been destroyed for writing the article by Apple users.
That's true too. But also the fact that you're switching ecosystems, and the grace part is very interesting. That's a very good point. But I think that they're switching ecosystems without any regards to like what they're actually doing. You're going from an ecosystem that everyone creates their hardware for to a system where it's effectively retroactively making support, like just kind of forcing the support to exist and not appreciating that effort. Like the fact that Linux is even possible to do what it does is
run on 99% of hardware, even the stuff that was never made to run on.
Yeah,
incredible.
Even
it's the most plug and play OS in the world right now. So
it's so impressive, and not to appreciate that is just baffling.
Is it? Yeah. Well, Linux, it is an OS for the curious, us tinkerers, and those of us who want better for our computers. And these articles are very aggravating at times. They come up now and again, and I always honestly come up with the same conclusion. There was once a time when you had to learn Windows, so spend the time to learn Linux.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, it's true because we all had to start somewhere. We all had to learn Windows, back in the 80s. Now,
in that same expectation, when somebody gets on the Mac for the first time, when I got on for a Mac for the first time, I had to learn different key shortcuts. There's no super key. There's no, control. What is it? The Control S and Control F combination. Everything's different, meaning you have to relearn stuff. Your settings are in different places. Your ability to control administrative stuff is in different
some of
places.
The shortcuts that go from one key is now 3 for no reason, and they're arbitrary and they don't make any sense. Like for example, with Linux and Windows, you have the print screen key to create a screenshot. With Mac, it's like Shift or Command Shift 3 or something. Like it's excessive, and that's just something you have to learn. And it's okay.
I'm not mad about it. You learn it.
It's something that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So they mentioned, open source comes with the cost of your time. Jill, to your point, not really. You just have to learn it like you would any other Mac OS or Linux or anything else.
Exactly.
You mentioned having to configure Wine to get certain apps to work.
That makes me laugh about the fact that they're like, oh, it's a cost of your time. What if you have to learn a whole new platform? Like if let's say you're going from like Adobe to DaVinci Resolve, which are both proprietary, like you still have to learn how they all
cost you your time. Why switch, Michael? Just keep paying the subscription fee and the early termination fee to Adobe.
Well, you'll never pay the early termination fee because you'll never leave.
Did you see that in Pewdiepie's video where he was
hilarious.
Going to get rid of Adobe and he was like shocked that he wanted to charge him an ETF? And PewDiepie's a millionaire. So that $65 meant nothing to him, but he couldn't even believe that they would do that at $65. And that just shows you like how absurd Adobe has come in trying to trap you into their stupid
principle of making me pay to not use your software. Like, what?
Yeah, they're just a horrible company. He said it, and I was like, yeah, I kind of agree. They then mentioned open source tools not being able to replace commercial ones. He mentioned Photoshop versus GIMP. Again, you took one example, which I think most professionals, like high-end professionals, not regular users, would agree Photoshop has more features than GIMP alone. Okay, fine. But there are plenty of open source software packages that absolutely set the standard. Pewdiepie, again, in his video, mentioned OBS as one of those examples. And then you have Blender as other example. There's plenty of software that the entire web, everything that runs on the web is open source that we set the standard for, and proprietary is not even existent in the discussion. So, like you picked one thing, and it's a fair critique, but you should have also mentioned there are many other things where open source is the standard. Finally, discuss the Linux community, which they said is hard to parse as they expect you to already know certain things about Linux and do your own research, which is intimidating.
I mean, that's only true if you go to certain, like it sounds like they started with Arch and then went to Arch community to get help. Yeah, don't do that.
Well,
like if you don't,
yeah,
They weren't watching Destination Linux, obviously.
Yeah, we would help you out.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it sounds like one of those people who are, like when they start off the article with an above average user, that makes me go like, oh no, this is not going to end well.
Yeah,
because it's like they think that somehow an above average Windows users has anything correlated at all to being a Linux user. It's a whole other ecosystem.
Yep. They believe actually in like Pewdiepie talked about Windows talking down to you and being dumb. A lot of people who think they're good at Windows actually aren't good at operating systems at all. In fact, Windows takes care of so much for you and you see nothing behind the scenes. You could be like, well, I can open all my programs, and sometimes I even go into settings and change my display settings. So I'm an above average user when it comes to Windows. Until you get into Linux and really use Linux, you don't understand. I can tell you, if you would have asked me before I joined Linux, we ran a small computer shop with my father, we did repairs, did all this stuff, I would have said I was a Windows expert. And then I got into Linux and realized I knew nothing about the operating system. Hardware, expert. Operating system, didn't know crap. But if you'd asked me before I joined Linux, I'd have told you I was an expert. So that's what I mean is like, you don't really understand your OS until you actually have control of an OS to do whatever you want. And all of those settings are available to you freely. Now, I appreciate, this isn't to flame this person, because I appreciate the fact they're giving reviews. I want more companies and more people to go out and try it and give their feedback. I'm asking for here is to use this as an example to say, maybe you're a little biased, and try to remove that out and actually give Linux a fair shot by treating it like its own ecosystem and then doing things that you would do if you were switching to any other ecosystem out there. They weren't overly harsh, but a little bit, like I said, unfair. Look, being able to say things like, hey, I can't play this game on Linux that I can play on Windows. So gaming on Linux isn't as good. It's like buying an Xbox and being mad you can't play Gods of War that is only available for PlayStation. You got on Linux, play the games that work for Linux, and then tell me how well they work. That would have been a fair review there.
Or getting a PlayStation standpoint and being mad that you can't play Super Mario.
There's a better example. Yeah. And honestly, if you were to be honest with yourself, if you actually tracked the amount of time you spend supporting Windows, maintaining broken drivers, dealing with random lockups, the blue screen of death, having an open task manager to kill tasks, killing frozen programs, going in and trying to turn off all the privacy features and settings that are hidden across a plethora of different apps within Windows in there, trying to deal with where your file went. Did it save it to OneDrive, which you didn't want to begin with, but is forced on you? Or did it actually put you on your C drive? Because now you have two documents folders, and it's pretty hard to distinguish sometimes when you're quickly looking for a file between them. Or when you're searching, and instead of giving you your file that you're searching for, it just wants to use Bing all the time, which Pewdiepie mentioned, but I constantly have to deal with if I'm at work using Windows and I'm searching for a specific Excel file, and it's like, want to search your file, Ryan's text, on Bing? No, I don't think it's out there, Windows. I actually just want you to search on my C drive for the file that's saved there. So if you were really honest with yourself, you'd realize that you spend way more time supporting your Windows than you ever would if you actually gave Linux a fair shot.
And that's also there's the extra bonus of all the things that you turned off for the privacy violations and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And then those get turned back on every update.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And hacking it to keep the ads out of the start bar.
Yeah.
What, you don't want Candy Crush, Jill?
Candy Crush. By the way,
I love the way Pewdiepie did that.
Yeah.
Pewdiepie's video on Linux.
Candy Crush, like in a baby voice.
Yeah, the baby voice was hilarious. I actually mad about Pewdiepie's video on Linux. It actually really annoyed me because it's the best video on Linux that I think as an introduction that anybody's ever done. It was funny. It wasn't overly technical. It covered all the core points of what makes Linux great. Exactly. He went into really advanced things with Linux, but he never sat there and explained it to anybody. So the video, he kept it light and above water so that anybody interested in Linux would just see it, and he talks about ricing and all these advanced things, but doesn't over explain it to the point where you're like, I don't know what he's talking about. I could never get this to work. He just made it fun. It really was the best introduction to Linux video ever done. And I'm mad about it because it wasn't me. So there.
Ask the art in the terminal. That just made me really excited.
Yeah. And the fact that he was so into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And dual booting, showing people how easy it is to dual boot. And Michael did an excellent video.
Oh, thank you, Jill.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's
it was funny. It's funny because what Ryan was saying is that PewDiePie's introduction to Linux video is really good because he made it fun, and that's true. It's entertaining, sure, absolutely, but he didn't go into the depths, which I think is a good point. It is good for a lot of people who are being introduced to something, and because the people who are subscribed to his channel are not tech people, they're not. He's just like a comedy variety channel or whatever. They're not expecting a very in-depth look at something. So he went very in-depth, but he made it fun in that process. But I also appreciate the fact that because he didn't go in-depth, I could, and I did a huge reaction video. Like, for those who haven't seen my channel, I did the reaction video. He had a 22-minute video. That's a pretty long video on YouTube. My reaction is an hour and 17 minutes long.
Oh my gosh!
So
did you make a full-length feature film? Jeez.
No, I actually chopped out certain sections of his video to not have the whole thing in there, and it still was over an hour.
All right, Michael Bay.
I just loved his enthusiasm.
There was so many explosions, right?
Excitement for Linux. I loved it when he talks about how we're gods when we use Linux.
And he went with the 30 Days of Night voice. Yeah. That's what I interpreted it as. With that thing, I thought it was so fantastic, and I would love to have Pewdiepie on. And Michael, we can get an invite out to Pewdiepie to come on the show to talk about it, because I think
that'd be awesome.
Timing.
Yeah,
and I would love to. First of all, he was doing things that I was like, I don't even know if I ever went that far into stuff. With the ricing and things that he was doing. It was incredible. It was super impressive
for someone who is not technical. Like, this is the part that's impressive the most to me. For someone who's not technical, because he says this in the beginning of the video, he goes into so much technical stuff. Like, he starts with Mint, great, sure. Then he moves on to Arch, okay, sure. And I was like, well, he's going into Arch. That's a bit worrisome. And then the first moment he shows the desktop of his Arch setup, I was like, okay, this is going to be fine. He's got a tiling window manager loaded, and he mentions Rafi, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, he went into the depths.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the video. I had my wife watch it as well, and she's not into the whole technical stuff, but she enjoyed it. She was entertained, which tells you right there, that he did such a fantastic job with it. Yeah. Would love to have him on the show and talk about it, because clearly he's got the Linux bug, which I love. He is addicted. You could tell from beginning to end. This is his thing. So, in any case, to wrap this up, Patrick Hearn, no issue again that you did a review or whatever. Just, next time, maybe take a look at, how you would review another OS, and then try it again. Give it another shot. That's my advice. Give Linux another shot with some of this advice, and then see if it changes your opinion. If you win it with a truly unbiased thought. I think having articles written on XDA developers in any, magazine, big forum, anything like that is super important to the popularity gaining. So I want to see more of it, but would hope for a little bit more grace. In our software spotlight this week, we have Kiwix.
Kiwix?
Not Kiwis, Michael.
Kiwix. Okay.
So not everyone has access to the internet. Not even in, countries like the US, we have hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people who have really no access to high-speed internet, for instance, and things like that. There are a lot of projects trying to fix that, and there are a lot of projects that say they're trying to fix that, and they just steal the money. But either way, there is this awesome project called Kiwix, which is an offline reader for online content like Wikipedia, Project Gutenberg, or TED Talks and things. So what this allows people to do, like students and otherwise, is have access to these huge encyclopedias of information, but they don't have to have the high-speed internet there to utilize it. The software is free to use for anyone. And whether you're on a computer, tablet, or just the phone, you can utilize this tool. This type of thing is super important for students. We saw this huge digital divide issue really become prevalent during COVID, where you realize like kids who were having to go to school virtually and things, they had no access to internet. How were they to compete? We know it hurt everybody's ability to learn, but how are they even able to compete at that level because they didn't have the internet? Writing papers and doing things. I couldn't imagine, because I'm in college right now for cybersecurity, trying to do stuff without access to the internet, trying to write these ridiculously complex papers without access to the internet, and being able to define these things. So tools like this are super important because there's a lot of people who don't have the internet. Kiwix is a really cool tool. Check it out at kiwix.org. Very important project out there. All right. So Pewdiepie, a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. You can come join us on the Discord going to tuxdigital.com/Discord, where we have now proven the fact, because somebody tested it out, that you can just say, I love Linux, and instantly have thousands of friends. So you go in there, you type, I love Linux, you have thousands of friends. Also, you can go into the Discord room and just type, why does Michael like Apple more than Linux? And you'll get thousands of friends, and everyone will join in on the discussion. It's incredible what this community can do. Okay,
that last one you'll just get a bunch of responses that this is not true. Ryan just makes up stuff. So that's what you'll get responses for.
By the way, if you want to watch that video on Pewdiepie, the hour 20-minute, go to the DOS Geek channel and check out the videos there, and you'll eventually get linked to Michael's video.
Eventually, YouTube will recommend the video that you actually wanted based on the side scroll where you're watching something that Ryan made that you didn't want in the first place.
No, you wanted it. You just didn't know you wanted it until you went there. Yeah.
I mean, in all seriousness, Ryan does have some good videos on there. Uh-huh. I mean, I don't know which one off the top of my head, but there are some good.
All of his videos on security and privacy are awesome.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate
true.
that.
That's true. Yeah, check out Ryan's videos as well. But if you want to support the show, you can become a patron and you get a bunch of cool access. For those who don't know, we are live streaming this show, but we're live streaming the audio version only. And if you want the video version, well, that's a patron perk. So you can watch the show live and get the full unedited version, and you get all of that. Plus, also, you get unedited episodes once the show is done. And all you got to do is go to tuxdigital.com/membership to get those perks. And you also get a bunch of other perks, including merch discounts in our store, tuxdigital.com/store. We have so much cool stuff. Ryan's actually wearing a shirt that is in the store, which is surprising
you
to
can't
everyone.
Teach an old dog new tricks, you know?
And in fact, as an honor to Ryan, I'm going to make new merch to put in the store specifically for Ryan that says, Ryan's okay, I guess.
Oh, man, that'd be an awesome shirt. I can't wait to meet people at the Red Hat Summit, which Michael and I will be at, with Ryan's okay, I guess shirt. That would be amazing.
That would be. I would love that, actually, if someone came up with a Ryan's okay, I guess shirt. That'd be awesome.
By the way, we're going to be at the Red Hat Summit, Michael.
For those who don't know, we are going to be in Boston in the end of May. I think it's 19 to the 22nd. Yes. At the Red Hat Summit. So if you're going to be at the Red Hat Summit, let us know and come. Find us in the whatever that's called. What's it called? The
Expo Hall
Summit. Expo
no, there's like
Hall?
a phrase. Oh, the hallway. What is it called? There's like a
what
term.
if Pewdiepie's there?
The hallway track.
Yeah, the hallway track. Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt it, but maybe at this point, who knows? But that would be really cool. And also, if you're just in Boston, let us know. We might do like a meetup or something. That'd be cool.
Aw. And make sure to check out all the amazing shows here on Tux Digital, including Michael's This Week in Linux.
It's pretty good.
And Ryan's DOS Geek channel.
Fantastic.
That's right.
It's okay, I guess.
We have an entire network of shows to fill your whole week with geeky goodness. If you don't know already, I say this every week. And to tuxdigital.com
You tell him, Jill.
those Linux penguins marching.
Jill's sick of that line. She wants a new line. She's like, I'm sick of reading this crap every single week. You people never learn. I keep telling you, go to our tuxdigital.com, but you don't listen. Now listen, you guys see how mad she is. If I were you, I'd go to tuxdigital.com right now and fix this, because Jill, you just got Jill angry, folks, for not going there.
You don't want Jill angry for sure.
Yeah. Go to destinationlinux.net/Sandfly and check out Sandfly Security. It's just an amazing product, and we wouldn't be around if it wasn't for them. They help make this show happen. So check them out as well.
Yeah, and absolutely. Go check out Sandfly. Fantastic service, and they're supporting us. So you support us by supporting them and all that sort of good stuff. And for those, we're going to end this show really quick, but we can't end the show without first getting out of Vim. And that is perfectly able to write WQ:/WQ:/WQ1 WQ exclamation :WQ:/WQ:/WQ. So
that's
everybody,
how you get out of Vim.
You have exited properly.
It's like the up, down, down, left, right, BA select start thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like the Contra code. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great week, and remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Pewdiepie.
Pewdiepie. Oh, goody. My husband's in chat. Master Toy Maker. Say hello to him.
Hello, Steve. Did you hear Jill get so mad, by the way? What are your thoughts on that? We've never seen her yell at the audience before, but she
yelled
ferocious.
at us and everything. She yelled at Ryan. She yelled at Ryan for putting that in the show for so many times.
Then she did moose ears in the L for Michael before the show started. It was unbelievable. You know? Never seen someone.
We literally have a GIF of you doing that. Let me put it in here.
Jill whispered to me to do it. You just didn't hear it in the audio.
Oh, I see. Even though I'm also connected to her microphone too, right. And so is the chat, who also didn't hear it.
We have our own channel. We talk about you on.
Okay.
So it's like a CB radio type of thing. We got to switch channels.
We switch channels and we talk about you while the show's going on.
Well, over and out, everybody. See you next week.